Building a family can be a complicated, messy, lonely, and sometimes heartbreaking process. But you don't have to navigate this challenging journey alone.
Welcome to the All Paths podcast, where we support and celebrate all of the different ways there are to try to grow your family. We are your hosts, Kate and Emily from the nonprofit organization All Paths Family Building. And today we're talking with one of our friends and colleagues, Nancy, about her own journey. Nancy, thank you for joining us today on the podcast.
Yes, of course. Thank you for having me. I love supporting All Paths. And I'm not sure if you know this, Kate and Emily, but when I first started looking into surrogacy, my gosh, it must have been 27 or 28 years ago. I used the support groups that you had available locally. I remember at that time we were meeting at someone's home. We would rotate homes and have sort of some parent support groups. So have always wanted to support your mission. So thank you for offering
Awesome.
everything you do.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, you've been a great friend to us. So before we get into your own family building journey in more detail, will you just briefly introduce yourself for our listeners?
Sure. So I'm Nancy Weatherby. I have two children born through the surrogacy process. And I also work at a local agency here in Boston called Circle Surrogacy.
Can you tell us a little bit about your journey to start a family? Where did it all begin?
Great question. So again, started looking into it probably 27 or 28 years ago. And the reason why I needed to turn to surrogacy was at around age 17, which was a little bit late for the diagnosis, but at age 17, I was diagnosed with MRKH syndrome. And that they don't know what causes this syndrome, but it's basically a birth defect. And it does affect everyone slightly different. Most people still have their ovaries, but many of us don't have a uterus, or we have just a fragment of a uterus. And so would need to either turn to adoption or surrogacy, right? Because we wouldn't be able to carry our own pregnancy. Oftentimes with MRKH, there's also some other odd birth disorders that go along with it. Some people have spine issues or eye issues or kidney disorders. I happen to have one kidney. It was just part of the way the disorder came about for me, which hasn't impacted my life at all. I had a great doctor in Boston when I was initially diagnosed. And again, it took them a little while to diagnose me. So, with my role at Circle, I have been able to meet so many women also diagnosed with MRKH. Because when I was first diagnosed at 17, they were like, this is extremely rare. We hardly ever see this. The doctor only ever knew one person that he had connected me to. So, with my work through the agency, I've met many women now who have turned to surrogacy to have a family because of MRKH. And I actually run a peer group for women with MRKH, which is I love. We meet
Oh, that's
quarterly, and it's
wonderful.
just great to be able to support each other.
So rewarding. But that must have been a lot to take in as a 17-year-old.
It was.
I'm sure the anxiety about what might be to come in terms of physical health challenges, but then also to hear the news about, reproduction at a time where you probably weren't immediately thinking about being a parent, but knowing you, I'm sure it was something you wanted in the future.
You're right. It was something I wanted in the future, but I think at that age, I didn't realize the full impact. I think again, the shock of being diagnosed, of course, was something. But very thankful for the doctor that diagnosed me because he was really positive. He really gave me a lot of hope, like down the road in the near future, I think we're going to have this thing called IVF surrogacy because back then it was really only traditional surrogacy. And he's like, I think you're going to be able to create embryos someday through IVF that can then be planted into a surrogate. So like he planted the seed and so was always something that was in the back of my mind. And of course, like when my husband and I got married, we knew we wanted a family. We knew we would have to do it a different way. And so we immediately started saving. We had a baby fund so that we could start saving. We did all of our research into both surrogacy and adoption. It wasn't a decision we took lightly. And in the end, it was an option. It was still relatively new, but it was an option. And we did want to explore being able to use our own biology. So we worked with the local clinic. We worked with Boston IVF. It did take a long time for success. With MRKH, because I don't have a uterus, my ovaries are also really high in my abdomen. And so they really had a hard time monitoring me, finding my embryos. I mean, my eggs, I'm sorry. And realizing like when they should trigger me, when they should do the retrieval. So I did many IVF cycles to get enough eggs to create embryos. So that was a very challenging part of my journey. But aside from that, we were really fortunate. We had two really successful surrogacy journeys. I,
Great.
you know, they weren't necessarily easy, but
Right.
really successful and grateful that we had that opportunity. And this is a technology that is amazing, really.
It
And
is.
and
It
it
is.
provides for a great outcome for everyone involved, not just the intended parents, but also the surrogates.
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to talk about that more. Do you remember, like, when did you tell your now husband that you were going to have to take a different course to parenthood? That must have been like sort of like a when in our relationship do I talk about this?
Yeah. God, I don't know if I remember that far back. We dated a long time. So we met, we're high school sweethearts.
Aw.
I know, we met in 11th grade. And so we dated for quite some time. I guess I don't really remember exactly when I told him, but I know it was a very difficult conversation to approach. And I remember thinking like, it's okay. He may choose, to move on. This is the big impact in someone's life, and I wasn't sure how he would receive the news. But fortunately for me, he was very understanding and just said, "Yep, we'll find a way," and we did.
Uh, and I think
That's
that
wonderful.
is such a it's a test you shouldn't have to have that or at any time.
No.
It's such a hard thing to talk about. But what a wonderful thing in a way to prove who you've chosen as a partner, that they are all in and willing to take a road that wasn't expected, but the one that he got to walk with you. So that makes it the right road.
No, well said. Yes, very fortunate.
I have a friend who knew that she had to take a unexpected road to parenthood, and she told her now husband on their first date, which I remember thinking was like, You are crazy," but like I said, she's just she just went out with it. She's like, "Well, I'm gonna adopt. I this, that, and the other thing, we're
Yeah.
gonna adopt," and it ended up being perfect because he had always wanted to adopt and was adopted himself. And so it became actually something that I think
Oh,
advanced their
wow.
relationship further because of this shared goal and comfort. So it was really cool. But I'm always
That's
like, first
amazing.
date? Okay.
I know. Yeah, I did not
You
have,
got to
I
weed
know it
out,
was not
you don't
my
want to
first
waste your
date.
time on somebody
I
who's
think
not
that's
going
what she was
to
like.
stick
So I
around.
think she was like, this is it. And
Yeah.
it's like a deal breaker. Like if you're a
Yeah.
Yankees fan, just walk out the door right now. We're not dating. We're not.
100%.
I'm
So,
happy that worked out so well for her.
Yes, and you. Yeah.
so what was the process like once you actually started and you said, okay, we've looked at adoption, we've looked at surrogacy, this is the path that seems right for us, ready, go. What was that experience like from not just a logistical standpoint, but also like the emotional standpoint, even going in knowing that this is how you were going to have to build your family? What sort of, emotions did it spark?
Yeah, I mean, thinking back at that time, I mean, I feel like we were both pretty well researched and knew what we wanted at that point. So I think when we made the decision to actually let's just do this and let's move forward, it was more excitement than anything else. We were just really excited to be able to now hit go and see how it played out. We looked at, there weren't many, but we did look at several different agencies back then. We spoke with different attorneys and decided who we wanted to work with to partner with. I don't often share this, but I will share this. We ended up first signing on with an agency that did not pan out. After working with them for a very long time, we were not a good fit for each other. And I did end up matching with someone independently who I met sort of through my cousin, like a friend of my cousin's cousin type of a deal. And so my first journey was an independent match. Um, and we just connected as soon as we met. You know, I think that happens often with our intended parents and our surrogates because they have that common goal, right? Of wanting to help create a child and bring a child into the world. And the parents are just so excited to have the opportunity and to find someone that's willing to help them. And the surrogate is so excited really to help someone that it's usually, I don't want to say love at first sight, but very early on, there's a connection, right? And they grow fond of each other. And to this day, we still have a very close relationship with my daughter's surrogate. So very fortunate. Yeah.
So you mentioned the first agency wasn't a good fit for somebody who's listening who might be just starting out this process, researching agencies. Like, what were some of the red flags for you in that
Yeah.
situation, or what are some of the questions that people can be asking early on in the process to maybe try to avoid that
I
experience?
always suggest working with an agency. I do. There are so many different moving parts in a journey, legal, insurance, the funds and the finances. Like you want to be the biggest advantage of working with an agency is you get to just focus on the relationship with your surrogate. You don't have to worry about finding insurance, finding different attorneys, um, speaking about reimbursements and base fee and things like that. So I always recommend working with an agency. Um, for us, it became clear, again, we did this a long time ago, so it was still relatively new. The agency was very small, and for a very long time, we heard nothing. She was not able to find us a match. And then when she did have a profile, it wasn't a good fit for us. I felt like she hadn't listened to what we were looking for. And then the second profile came along, and we were like, oh gosh, it didn't feel right. And so when the opportunity came up to work with an independent match, we did move forward. And it was a lot of legwork on my part. So I did a lot of the work. We had to find our attorney. We found the surrogate's attorney. They held the escrow for us. Like it was almost like a part-time job, really, to make sure that everything went smoothly. Um, so yeah, for me, I do always suggest working with an agency. And I always tell people, right? I work with an agency. Of course, I'm going to say that I think we're the best, but I think it's a really important, like interview two or three different agencies. Make sure you find the agency that you're comfortable with, that you trust, and that you can sit back and just let them guide you through the process.
So when you tried to further grow your family, you did use an agency the second time.
I did because at the
Yeah.
time then I was working with Circle Surrogacy. So
Oh, okay.
I did use their assistance for our second journey. Um, but I guess I'll share a little bit. Let me share a little bit more
Yeah.
about, I guess, the first journey. So I completely pivoted. So I went to college for electronic engineering and worked within that field for, I don't know, I want to say maybe 5 years before we decided to do the research and jump into a surrogacy journey. And so after we completed our first journey, which was the best experience, I was helping my husband find a new job. And back then it was in the Boston Globe, searching through the Globe. I'm aging.
Circling it in the actual
I,
newspaper. Yes,
yeah,
I
I'm
remember
aging
those
myself.
days. Yep.
And I was doing that to help him. And I came across an ad that John Weltman, the owner, founder of Circle Surrogacy, had placed for a part-time coordinator with his agency. And it was a relatively new agency at the time. So I went in, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I could literally help people do what we just did. Went in for an interview. He hired me immediately. And I've been with Circle now for 22 years. So
Smart man. He's a smart man.
yes, I love John. Unfortunately, didn't really use my college education all that much in the field I went to school for, but no looking back, no regrets. It's so rewarding to be able to just share my story and talk to other people about what they can expect and what a journey looks like. And I love it.
Yeah,
So,
so your role has evolved, I know, over those 22 years. So like what is your title right now? What is your I know you wear many hats, but what is your primary responsibilities?
so I really work mainly on the intended parent side. So yes, you're right. Over the years, I've done many different things. I was a program coordinator in the beginning. Then I helped with the egg donation side of things. Then I kind of worked with accounting for a little while when we didn't have our own accounting team. But for the most part, always working with intended parents. So now I am the intended parent outreach manager with the agency. And the majority of my time is spent educating the intended parents on our program, what to expect from a journey, helping them on board. I work also with any intended parent looking to come back for a second or third journey with us. So we call those sibling journeys. I have the privilege of working on all of those. Um, and yeah, really just mostly working on the intended parent side. And I think I mentioned this earlier, about 44% of my colleagues have personal experience. So it's so great to be able to just share all of our different experiences um, as we move forward, as we move the intended parents forward in the program. And I think that's what sort of helped us design the program, because as you know, John Weltman is a parent to the program, I mean, for surrogacy as well. And that's just what always sort of led us to the relationship-based approach that we still believe in.
When you started working for Circle, you had one child, and then while you were working for Circle, you thought, time to try to have a sibling journey
Right.
of our own, hopefully.
Correct. And so the way that that played out for my sibling journey was that the surrogate we worked with the first time actually came back to us probably 3 months after delivery and was like, that was such a great experience. I'm ready to go. We had talked about doing another journey together. She's like, I'm ready to go. When do you think you guys are going to be ready? And we were like, oh no, we're not there yet, emotionally or financially, right? It's a big process. And so we had to tell her we weren't quite ready to move forward. We all spoke about it. She decided to work with another set of intended parents. And she actually went on to deliver twins for them. I mean, she's amazing. And then came back to work with us about 3 years later for our sibling journey. At the time, I was with the agency. So the agency would have been representing us legally, and things like that. Unfortunately, after she was screened in to work with us again, um, it was like a few weeks before our scheduled transfer, she developed a blood clot in her leg just unexpectedly, out of the blue. We were all devastated. So we paused the process. She had to go through a bunch of testing, and she actually learned that she had a genetic disorder that made her more prone to blood clots. I don't remember what it's called. And so it was suggested that her whole family be tested, and several members of her family had the same genetic disorder. And so at that time, the physician that we were working with, I actually did get a second opinion on this, but the second opinion physician said to me, I can't recommend you work with her again. Like, she is at a higher risk now. Even if she's closely monitored and on medication, she's at a higher risk for developing another blood clot. So you're putting her life at risk. And so once we heard that, we were like, we can't do this. We can't move forward together. Helen, our surrogate, was devastated. She was like gung ho to move forward and do it again, but we did realize it was for the best. And so we did not move forward. So my husband and I took a little bit of a break at that time. We re-examined or started researching again. Do we want to move forward with a new surrogate match, or do we want to potentially adopt? And so we started down the adoption route with an agency in Texas. They were wonderful. In the end, it did not work out. It wasn't meant to be. It didn't work out for us. And in that time frame, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law reached out to us and said, we've been thinking about this. We're finished with our family and we want to be able to help you. And so we did. We moved forward with my sister-in-law. The agency still guided us, did all the legal work, all the representations. But it was my sister-in-law that was our second surrogate. So we, like
Gift. I
I
mean,
said,
what an
very fortunate.
amazing, that's so wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that that worked out, and must be such a special bond in your relationship with them. So
It is.
that's great.
Yes, it was great. It was pretty amazing. I will say, working with my sister-in-law emotionally was a little bit more challenging because we are close. So I did see her more regularly, more often. And so for me, it was a little more anxiety provoking. Um, I guess like seeing her play with the dog, or we would go out on the boat together and I'd be like, oh, wait, the water's a little rough today. Maybe we should go back in. Like I
Hold
was
on to that handle over there.
exactly, I was definitely a little more nervous. And of course I loved her, right? She's my
Of
sister-in-law. I was
course.
so worried something might go wrong that
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was a
No,
little more challenging emotionally.
absolutely. Well, speaking of emotions, do you feel like you had the opportunity to kind of process your own feelings related to not being able to be pregnant yourself? And if so, did any particular resources or supports help you through that?
So I do think I've been able to, I had enough time from like my diagnosis to getting married to preparing to choose a path to sort of process all that. In hindsight, I do wish that I had probably connected with a therapist. I did not. I have learned like through the peer group of the women that I connect with MRKH, most of them did and found it very helpful in processing their emotions. I never did. I still haven't. But I can see where that is really helpful for a lot of people. For me, I think I'm a little goal oriented. So being able to just focus in on this is what I'm going to do and I'm going to make it happen. And it worked. And I have my two miracles. Um, so yeah. One of the things I think that our agency does that most don't is we focus so heavily on support for both the surrogate and the intended parents. So the surrogate will have her own licensed mental health practitioner supporting her. And we have peer groups for both the surrogates and the intended parents. And my gosh, for our IPs now, I think we probably offer a dozen different groups. And this is something that Jen Rackman, when she came to work for us, started, with her background of being a social worker. She recognized there was more that we could do to support our intended parents. We started with one group and we probably have a dozen different peer groups now.
It's wonderful. Well,
That's really
obviously,
wonderful.
that's close to our heart. That's
Yeah.
very big passion of ours. So I love to hear that. And we believe in therapy too, so of
Yeah.
course. But of course, it's like do as I say, not as I didn't do, because I did not have a therapist either, and I regret it. I'm like, what was I thinking?
I
I
know. I look
I
back
tried
too.
to just go it alone. Why did I do that?
Yeah. And after speaking with so many different people that just found it so helpful to work through it with the therapist, I do wish in hindsight that I had, but it wasn't something that I did, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I tell everyone I meet, like, this process is a very successful way to move forward. For years, surrogacy has been successful and rewarding for both IPs and surrogates, but I never lie and say it's easy. There's so many things that can go wrong, even with just a regular pregnancy. Just magnify that with the surrogacy. Um, and it's certainly emotional, and it's a very unique relationship that you form with your surrogate. So I'm always really honest with people from the beginning as they consider whether or not surrogacy is the right path for them.
And I was going to say they are still your miracles. They're just not as little.
They're not as little anymore.
So, Nancy, I know you're based in Boston, Circle is based in Boston.
Mhm.
Um, but it sounds like you support both intended parents and carriers across the US. Is that right?
So that's correct. So our intended parents are worldwide, right? So we can work with intended parents from anywhere, and we do. They span the nation. But our gestational carriers only reside in the US. So the surrogates are all US based surrogates. And we have staff across the US and abroad.
That's great. But I know one of the challenges of that for Circle and for the intended parents and carriers especially is they
Mhm.
have to be mindful of what the laws are in their state where they reside.
Yeah.
And we All Paths obviously was so happy to partner on parentage advocacy with Circle, especially in Massachusetts. But I know you've been just mindful of those laws and how they need
That's
to be
right.
updated because it really impacts families that are being built this way.
Hugely, hugely. So absolutely. All the international intended parents are required to meet with an attorney local to them to understand what they're going to need to do when they return home with the child. Um, and then we, of course, our legal team always researches that as well. And because we need to understand what they need paperwork wise to return home to their country. And so we have to consider who we match them with, because here in the US, the laws do vary state by state. And so we always, first and foremost, that's one of the things we look at first, right? Is we want to make sure this is legally secure, that we match them with a surrogate that is in the proper state for them, to make sure that the legal parental rights are completed without any problems. Our legal team, oh, I don't mean to give them a plug, but our legal team is amazing.
Oh, we love them. We love them too.
Yeah, that's a lot to navigate. I can't, I mean, just hearing you talk about everything, I'm so
Yeah.
impressed that you did an independent match and were able to manage all this on your own.
Yeah, it was a lot.
That's a
It,
lot.
it really was a lot. And I would never recommend for anyone to do it, especially now. I feel like there's so many more pitfalls now and so many more, I mean, I don't know. It's really risky to do independently. Yeah, there's been a lot of great changes over the years, actually, right? In the last 22 years, seeing some of the advancements with IVF, I feel like even for we had our MRKH meetup yesterday. A lot of the women, IVF now is so easy. They figured out how to monitor, right? And what tests to perform first, so they know what to look for and how to perform the egg retrievals. The majority of the states we can work within, surrogacy's become so much more favorable over the years. The other advancement that's been really nice to watch is more and more, still just the larger companies, but more companies now are starting to offer surrogacy benefits. So that's been really great to witness as well.
Yeah, it is so nice to see. And I think some of those private insurers, I think provide a good roadmap that I wish states would follow for their
Right.
policy, their mandated insurance, because I think they're so much more inclusive and I feel like very thoughtfully crafted,
Agree.
where that isn't always the case with other insurance plans. So it is nice to see.
Absolutely. Yeah, agree. And we're fortunate. Massachusetts is great in that regard.
Yeah. You know, we could always be better, but we are pretty good.
Yes.
I'm better. We're better now that we passed the Massachusetts Parentage Act. That
Yes.
took a long time, but we're very
Yes, a
proud and
lot
happy
of work
about
on
that.
that. But very impressed.
So even kind of with all the advancements, are there still misconceptions that you find pop up when you're talking either with like newer intended parents or family member friends
That's
that
a great
you
question.
see?
I find it happens less these days, to be honest. We used to
Good.
hear people like for a long time, people didn't understand the difference between traditional surrogacy, where the surrogate was providing the egg and had the biological tie, versus someone using their own biology, which is all we do now, IVF surrogacy. I don't hear that confusion really anymore from family members, friends, new intended parents just starting out on the research. What we do often hear from intended parents who are just starting to think about surrogacy, one of the fears that they still always come forward with the question of, do the surrogates get attached? Have you ever had a surrogate change your mind and try to assert rights to the child? And we don't, and we haven't, right? That's one of the huge benefits of working with an agency. They're very well screened and they're very well supported. And there's no biological tie, so they have no rights to the child. And the surrogates are not coming into this to try to have another child themselves. They are coming into this to really, they have a strong desire to help someone.
That's great. That
Yeah.
must be very reassuring for people,
Yeah.
because I think usually people have already been through so much that they
Mhm.
want to have some reassurance that that's not going to be one of the fears. Well, we have two questions that we ask all of our guests. So we would love to ask you those questions. So, one is, what is something you would say to someone who was just starting out on their journey to grow their family? And then, kind of the flip side of that is, what do you wish no one would ever say again to someone struggling to grow their family who has to take an alternative path?
Great questions. So, for someone just starting out, because I talk to people, like I said, all the time, starting out and doing their research, is talk to as many people as you can, right? I think that once people start opening up with the fact that they need IVF or they are considering adoption or surrogacy, once they start sharing that with loved ones around them, oftentimes they learn that maybe someone else also considered that, or they know someone that used adoption or surrogacy or IVF and can share those experiences. So opening it up and asking for support and sort of sharing your story, I find is always helpful for people. And do your research. I do think it's important that you not just meet with one adoption agency or one surrogacy agency, meet with several. Make sure that you are choosing the right partner for your journey or for the chosen path. That's really important. So yeah, research to me is really important. Don't just think you can just make a decision, I don't know, quickly and easily and move forward. It's a big decision. You need to make sure you're making the right choice for you and for your family, for your future family, because you also want to be thinking long term for the child, right? What kind of relationship do you want with your surrogate? What story will you be sharing with your child? Hopefully it'll be the truth about what you proceeded with, but it should be a positive story, and experience. That's always the goal, right? Your second question was, what do I wish people would never say anymore? I still think we hear all often like, oh, it's no, oh, so you just can't have kids on your own. So just adopt. Why don't you just adopt? I think people don't realize it isn't that easy. It is a choice. It's not the only choice. And it isn't that easy. And some people have come to this with so much pain and suffering to get to the point of realizing they need a different path and they have to make a choice that I think people just don't realize that. We meet with people that have had like 5, 6, 7 miscarriages or just really tragic stories. And people need to be more mindful before they speak.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, and I think just for me personally, I was open to adoption certainly, and I ended up not traveling that path, but I was very afraid of the like birth parent changing their mind aspect. It was just like another loss that I just was anticipating
Yeah.
and um just felt like I was have such a hard time with that. So and as we've said before in this podcast, it's really adding the just that really
Yeah.
makes
Just take it out.
it
Yeah, take
sound
it out.
so like easy and like
Yeah.
cavalier. It's just so cavalier to use that word. So you mentioned about owning, sharing your story with your now adult children.
Mhm.
So I'd love to hear a little bit about that. So did you I imagine it was kind of the fabric of growing up for your kids.
It certainly was. Like there was never a point in time where we sat the kids down and said, we have to tell you something. And I have an age gap, right? There's a 6-year age gap between my children. It was always just part of their birth story, right? So it was always age appropriate, but basically it was mommy's belly was broken and this wonderful person helped us. Both of them are still in our lives. We're still very close, right? Even to my daughter's surrogate. And so, for example, my daughter's first birthday, we invited the surrogate and her family. We had just formed a very close relationship. So it's just always sort of been part of the birth story. I do think my kids kind of approach it differently. So feel like my daughter always felt, yes, it's a special delivery, like I'm special. I was really wanted. I will say for her, I had a big memory album of all the doctor's appointments, the meetings, the ultrasounds. I did not do that for my poor
Child
son.
thing. They're like, what
Number two.
yeah, they have a pamphlet.
Exactly. If he's lucky, if he's lucky. But same story for the two of them. Excuse me. And I think my daughter always felt special and connected with her surrogate. Her college essay was about how at first, she, when she was younger, she was afraid to share with everyone around her in case they didn't accept her special delivery. She did go to a private Catholic school, but her college essay was about how, looking back, she now realizes like how loved she was and how wanted she was and how special it was that someone helped us have her. My son is more cavalier about it. He's like, yep, whatever. Doesn't feel the need to talk about it, ask questions. Um, He knows, but it's like, yeah, that's great.
I mean, obviously there's no right or wrong to how anyone feels about this, but I would guess it's because of that normalization that's what he's known through his whole life. And also that, as we believe, like, it's not only about biology. Family is obviously the parents who raised him, not the person who gave birth to him, although that was an amazing
Right.
part of it and a very important, essential part of it. But so I'm sure that's why he's like, my family's my family, and that is what it is.
Yeah, it's always been normalized.
That's really wonderful. So before we wrap up, is there anything that we haven't asked about that you would want to share, either about your own family story or about the work that you do now?
I think that I always just want people to know that they have choices and they should do their research and they will get there. Like I think some people, like I said, have really had such a difficult time before. I mean, there's a certain, to me, grieving process that goes along with realizing you're going to lose, you don't have that fertility and you're going to need help um, in some capacity to have a child. So I think they need to come to that point so that they can enjoy what lies ahead and get to the end point, which is being a parent. And I think, yeah, just do a lot of research. Make sure you're choosing the right path for you, that you're comfortable with it, and stay open to what lies ahead.
I love that. And we're so grateful and happy that obviously Circle is so focused on the emotional aspect of this and has the full network of support groups. But as you know, we also have our surrogacy peer support group that's open to anyone. So we'll include that in the show notes of this
Yeah, that would
episode
be great.
also.
Like I said, that's how I started
I
was
know,
through
that's
your
so
support
great.
group so many years ago.
That's so great. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you if they're interested in learning
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
or
They can reach out to me at any time, even if it is not to discuss circle surrogacy and they just want to talk about MRKH or my personal story. I'm always, always open to sharing. My email is very simple to remember. It's Nancy at circlesurrogacy.com.
you're very generous with your story and very generous with your kindness. And
Thank
so
you. I mean, how lucky I look back and I just think, yeah, no regrets.
Thank you, Nancy, for, not only sharing your own family story, but, the information about the work that you do and some helpful, tips or starting places for people who might be thinking about pursuing surrogacy as their path to parenthood.
Yeah, I love it. Talk about it every day. Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
we hope you'll join us next time for more family building stories and resources. Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts to make sure you never miss an episode. And follow us on social media at allpathsfb or visit our website, allpathsfb.org, for more information about our work. All Paths Family Building is so grateful to the members of our circle of support who are vital to our ability to provide emotional support, education, and advocacy that is open to anyone struggling to grow their families. Today, we want to give a great thank you to our bronze sponsor, CCRM Boston. Thank you for joining us for this episode. Please help spread the word so that anyone who is struggling to grow their family can join the conversation. It's an honor to walk with you on your family building journey.